he's concerned with what makes actions right and wrong, obligatory. And given the biological account of morality, he says it's reasonable to ask whether or not biology is all there is to morality, right? And if it is, what does this imply about the authority of our moral beliefs, if anything? Right? In other words, if they're based on biology, okay, what about why are they authoritative, right? Why do we have to follow our biology, or not, right? Yeah. He begins this section by talking about E.O. Wilson, the famed social biologist, who wrote about how biology and sociology kind of evolved, right? The evolution of our various behaviors, right? Before then, folks, obviously features evolved is what folks said, but behaviors seem to be something else is going on. But Wilson kind of connected evolution with our particular social behavior, right? And so he says the general picture here is that our moral beliefs have been fashioned over time to help us survive. Ethical behavior tends to keep us alive long enough to produce the next generation. So that's the basic idea here. There was controversy at the time, when E.O. Wilson put his book out, but now it's pretty much a given deal.
Yeah. It's just about finding that explanation that you can tie with something to prehistoric man. So, the example I always bring up is, you're taking a walk out in nature and you hear rustling over in the cornfield or whatnot, and you see the corn stalks move. Well, your prehistoric man has passed you through the ages, DNA strand, that this gene kicks on and says, oh, there's probably a snake there, so I should fear rustling. And so those who developed this fear gene passed it on because they were able to fear off the snake. They could run away or to grab it out of midair because they were that much more manly than I am.
Yeah.
But now, it's just you're running from the deer or whatever, but it's still protecting you. It's adding to your survival. So, if you hear a sudden noise, back then it was a coyote in the woods that was coming to drag you and your young off. Well, now it's a car that's passing you by that you're moving over a little bit more. Grandma's out there with her bifocals off.
I would think some of my kids may have missed that gene because oftentimes when they hear rustles, they go forward when they were kids, young kids, because they wanted to know what it was all about,
we evolved in different species forms. And, right.
So this has become common fare, he says. He quotes Peter Singer here. He says, this provides empirical support for the idea that, like other psychological faculties of the mind, including language and math, we are endowed with a moral faculty that guides our intuitive judgments of right and wrong, interacting in interesting ways with the local culture. These intuitions reflect the outcome of millions of years in which our ancestors have lived as social mammals and are part of our common inheritance as much as our opposable thumbs are. Yeah. Right? So there it is. It's all in the genes.
Right. So nothing's right or wrong. It's does this add to survival, and we can make those determinations based on probably what we consider good at the time. Except when times change, what do we do with that? And so we'll get into that a little bit later in this chapter.
So what do we do with what seems to be anti-survival behavior?
Yeah. Right. Don't we engage in behavior that is terrible? Like, how about war? Hey,
or altruism.
Hey, random person, go out and fight for your country and protect other people that you've never met, or go across the seas and protect this town because you're ordered to.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't seem very survival to us. Or you have your child and you sacrifice your sleep and energy and time and money. All the things that you could be using to feed yourself, you're doing for another being. That seems anti-you.
Yeah, anti-self-interested, right?
Yeah.
Anti-survival interested, right? And here's another one that he talks about in terms of anti-survival behavior.
Right. Yeah, altruism.
Altruism.
Yeah, altruism. Giving money to the poor. We shouldn't do that, right? Because that's helping other people. The good news is we do actually see this in nature, and we see it as the symbiosis. So think of like the fish that go around sharks and clean them up. The sharks don't eat them; they get a source of food. Sharks get taken care of; all the bacteria go off.
Everybody's
Yeah.
playing good together.
Yeah, right. Yeah, even the mean old sharks. Bees and flowers. I guess flowers didn't exist before bees, and so they had to evolve.
Which came first, the
Yeah.
bee or the flower?
Exactly. There you go. So societies and their necessary moral norms are far more conducive to preserving our genes than a life lived in total isolation. So the idea is that those of us who are more sympathetic to other people, more altruistic, kind of form this community bond, kind of almost a social contract. Although I don't believe in the social contract, it forms this type of societal, milieu that brings us together, and so we're more apt to protect other people. They're more apt to protect us, and the group, in whatever denomination you draw your circle around, survives that way.
Right. So cooperation drives altruism.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So and we have evolved and understand that cooperation allows for better survival. Right.
Right. And then altruism among family members is another thing. It seems odd that we want to protect our children, except for the very fact that also ingrained in us is this innate sense to continue the species, and especially continue not only the species, but our distinct DNA line. That seems because, our ancestors, those that didn't have that desire, died off because you wouldn't see them today. And so over millions of years, those same type of people either died off because they didn't produce their DNA down the family tree, or those that did continued on. And so that gene, wherever it might be, has developed, and so much so that it seems almost worldwide now.
Right. And so he makes the point that altruism then is really selfishness.
Right. Yeah. It's just one more tool for our survival. So we don't, even though we might have a consciousness of, I might die, I care about me in other people or in other things. So by helping my neighbor save their child from getting struck by a car, I hope that they would do it for mine, and in doing so, continue my DNA strand down through the ages, which I don't know why that affects me.
Yeah. Why should I care? But so he makes the point here that it kind of twists around our usual explanation of altruism, right? I mean, altruism is done. We help others for our own selfish reasons, and that's that's kind of odd.
Yeah, but we get close to Ayn Rand's objectivism and selfishness. Selfishness is a virtue. So we're all slowly becoming libertarians this way, right?